The village was alive with color and sound that morning. Bright banners flapped in the gentle breeze, and the smell of fresh bread and roasted corn drifted through the air. Children ran through the narrow lanes, laughing and shouting, while vendors called out the names of their goods, offering everything from hand-carved toys to shiny trinkets. It was the kind of day that everyone in the village waited for all year, a day when tradition and celebration met in a festival of joy. Among the crowd, a young man named Ethan moved quietly. He was not loud like some of the other villagers. He did not call attention to himself, nor did he seek the spotlight. Ethan had always preferred to observe, to watch how people laughed, how their eyes lit up with curiosity, and how small gestures revealed who they truly were. His hands were strong and steady from years of helping on the farm, and his eyes, though calm, were sharp. He had a skill that most of the boys in the village admired secretly. He could aim with a bow as if he were born with it. But today, he had no thought of showing off. As he walked past the center of the fair, he noticed a crowd gathering near a wooden platform. A cheerful man stood atop it, raising his arms to catch the attention of everyone. "Step right up," he called, his voice echoing. "A challenge of skill and courage. Shoot the apple and win the heart of the one who stands with it." Ethan slowed his pace and watched. At the center of the platform stood a young girl, her hands folded in front of her. She was the same age as him, with dark hair tied neatly in a braid, and eyes that sparkled with a mix of nervousness and excitement. The villagers whispered among themselves, some teasing, some laughing, some watching with curiosity. He felt a strange feeling in his chest. He had heard of this challenge before, though he had never participated. It was a playful tradition, meant to test the aim of young men and entertain the crowd. But it also carried a hint of pressure. Everyone expected the boys to step forward and try their luck, as if the girl were a prize rather than a person. Ethan's heart did not like that thought. He did not want to treat her as a reward or a goal. He wanted to see her safe, happy, and free from any harm. Still, he found himself drawn to the crowd, standing at the edge and watching quietly. The man on the platform continued to announce the challenge. "Who among you has the courage and skill to take the shot? Remember, the apple rests upon her head. Steady hands, steady hearts, and a steady aim will win the day." Some boys stepped forward eagerly, boasting of their abilities. The crowd cheered for them, laughing and shouting encouragement. Each attempt was met with applause or gasps, depending on how close they came to the apple. Ethan's eyes, however, were fixed on the girl. She was smiling, trying to appear calm, but he noticed the small tremor in her hands. Her fingers twisted nervously, and her shoulders were tense. She trusted that no one would hurt her, but even so, there was fear in her posture. A few moments passed, and no one seemed to satisfy both courage and skill. Ethan could feel the eyes of the crowd eventually turning toward him. Recognizing that he had a reputation for accuracy with a bow, murmurs ran through the villagers encouraging him to try. He shook his head subtly, unsure if he should take part. But then he looked at her again, at the nervous trust in her eyes, and something inside him shifted. It was not about winning or impressing anyone. It was about doing what was right, ensuring that the girl was safe. He stepped forward slowly, feeling the weight of the bow in his hands. The crowd grew silent, anticipation hanging in the air like a thick fog. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, unsure if he would refuse, unsure if he would take the risk. Ethan's mind raced for a moment, considering the danger, but he knew he could control the shot. He had practiced countless times in the fields, aiming at targets smaller than this apple, and he had never faltered. He drew the arrow. Feeling the tension in the string and the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders, the world seemed to narrow around him. The sounds of laughter, shouting, and the wind faded. All that remained was the apple, the girl, and the steady rhythm of his own breath. He focused, not on the cheers or the expectations, but on keeping her safe. Finally, he released the arrow. It flew through the air in a perfect arc, splitting the apple with a clean, precise shot. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting Ethan's name. Some whistled, and others laughed with amazement. But Ethan did not turn to bask in their applause. He stepped forward quickly, checking to make sure she was unharmed. The girl exhaled, a mix of relief and surprise on her face. Her smile grew, genuine and warm, and she gave him a small nod of thanks. Ethan's heart, which had been uncertain moments before, now felt something new. It was not pride or the desire to win her as a prize. It was a deep, quiet feeling of care and connection. He realized that he wanted to know her, not because of the challenge, but because of the person she was. The crowd continued to cheer around them, but Ethan and the girl shared a moment of silence in the middle of the noise. They did not speak immediately. Words were not needed to understand the trust that had formed. He helped her step down from the platform, making sure she did not stumble. She glanced at him with curiosity in her eyes as they walked through the fair together. Ethan noticed more details about her. The way she laughed at a child chasing a balloon, the way she gently touched the flowers at a stall, the way her eyes sparkled when she saw something beautiful. It was in these small things that he felt his heart begin to change. He did not want her as a reward or a symbol of success. He wanted to be near her, to talk with her, to share simple moments. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. They moved together among the stalls, sharing laughter and quiet conversation. Ethan listened as she spoke about her family, her hopes for the future, and the little dreams she held close. He found himself opening up too, telling her about the farm, his chores, and his love for archery. It was an unusual connection born from a tradition that many would have called silly. Yet it felt sincere and important. By evening, the fair began to wind down. Lanterns were lit, casting a warm glow over the village, and the sounds of music and chatter softened into the gentle hum of night. Ethan and the girl paused near a fountain, watching the reflections of the lanterns dance on the water. The moment was quiet but meaningful. He realized that the challenge, the apple, and the cheers of the crowd had led him to something far greater. It had led him to a heart that mattered, not a prize that could be won. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. The day had shown him that courage was not about showing off or following traditions blindly. It was about acting with care, making choices that honored the trust of others, and recognizing the value of someone's heart over any game. And in that moment, he understood that his heart had already chosen, in its own quiet way, to stay with the girl who had stood bravely on the platform, not as a prize, but as a person. As the villagers began to leave, chatting about the day's events and the impressive shot that had split the apple, Ethan and the girl walked slowly through the fading crowd. There was a sense of promise in the air, unspoken but understood. They had met under unusual circumstances, yet something genuine had begun. It was not the result of a challenge or the cheers of others. It was the beginning of a connection that would grow quietly, patiently, and truly. That night, as the lanterns dimmed and the fair became a memory, Ethan reflected on the day. He had come with no expectation, with no desire to claim a prize or prove himself to others. Yet he had found something far more important, a moment of trust, a shared smile, and the first spark of a friendship that could become something lasting. He went to bed with a calm heart, knowing that the day had changed him in ways that he could not yet fully understand, but that he was ready to explore. The apple challenge, which had seemed so trivial to others, had brought him to an understanding he would carry forward, that true courage and true connection come not from winning a game, but from the choices of the heart. And that was a lesson that would stay with him far longer than the cheers of the crowd or the fleeting excitement of the fair. The morning after the fair, the village was quiet compared to the excitement of the day before. The sun shone warmly over the rooftops, and the smell of freshly baked bread drifted from the bakery. Birds chirped in the trees, and the soft sound of a distant stream added a calm rhythm to the day. Ethan walked through the village slowly, his thoughts still on Clara. He remembered the way she had smiled at him, the trust she had shown, and the quiet connection that had formed during the apple challenge. He did not expect anything to change immediately, but he felt a gentle excitement. Today he wanted to see her again, not because of tradition or expectation, but because he genuinely wanted to know her better. The fair had ended, but something far more meaningful had begun. Clara was walking along the path near the village well when Ethan spotted her. She carried a small basket of vegetables from the market, and her expression was calm but thoughtful. She looked up as he approached, and her face lit up with recognition. Ethan smiled, and she returned it a little shyly. "Good morning, Clara," he said. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," she replied, her voice soft but cheerful. "And you?" "I did," he said honestly. "I've been thinking about yesterday, about the fair, and about the apple challenge." He hesitated for a moment, then added, "I realized something. I didn't want to win you as a prize. I wanted to make sure you were safe. That's what mattered to me." Clara looked at him, surprised. Then her smile grew wider. "I felt the same way," she said. "I wasn't worried about the challenge itself, but I wanted someone who cared about me as a person, not someone just showing off their skills." They walked together toward the market, moving slowly so they could talk. Ethan pointed out small things along the weighing stall with fresh flowers. A tiny bird perched on a fence, a cat stretching in the sun. Clara laughed softly at his observations, and soon she was pointing out things too, sharing her small joys and noticing the little details in the village that others often overlooked as they walked. They began to share stories about their lives. Ethan spoke about helping his family on the farm, the chores he enjoyed, and the lessons he had learned from working hard. Clara talked about her family, her school, and her love for reading books. They found that they had much in common, from their favorite stories to the way they liked to spend quiet. Afternoons, other villagers noticed them walking together and whispered among themselves. Some teased Ethan, saying he had won the challenge, and others teased Clara, asking if she was impressed by his skills. But neither of them paid attention. They were more interested in each other's thoughts, feelings, and small moments of laughter. It was a connection built not on spectacle, but on understanding. Later, they stopped by a small stream that ran through the village. The water was clear, reflecting the blue sky and the green leaves above. Clara sat on a flat rock by the edge, dipping her fingers into the cool water. Ethan crouched beside her, tossing small pebbles into the stream and watching the ripples spread. "I like this place," Clara said softly. "It feels peaceful." Ethan nodded. "It does. It's quiet, and you can think. Sometimes I come here when I need to decide things or just be alone for a little while." She looked at him, curious. "Do you ever get scared? About life or the future?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Sometimes. But I think it's normal to feel that way. We can't control everything, but we can choose how we treat people and how we care for those around us. That makes life a little less frightening." Clara nodded, impressed by his words. She realized that Ethan was not only kind, but thoughtful. He noticed things that others often overlooked. He cared about more than appearances or competitions. And that made her feel safe and valued in a way she had not expected. As the day went on, they continued to walk through the village, visiting small shops and greeting familiar faces. Ethan helped Clara carry her basket when it became heavy, and she thanked him with a warm smile. They laughed together at small mishaps, like when a chicken ran past them, causing a moment of startled confusion, and shared stories about childhood, memories that made them both laugh until their sides ached. By afternoon, the village square became busier again. People gathered for another festival activity, but Ethan and Clara found a quiet bench under a large oak tree. They sat together, talking about dreams for the future. Clara shared her hope to study more and explore the world beyond the village, while Ethan spoke of his desire to improve the farm and help his family thrive. Through their conversation, they realized something important. The connection they had formed during the apple challenge was not just about that single moment. It was about patience, understanding, and genuine care. They both knew that lasting bonds were built slowly, not in a single day or through a daring act. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the village, Ethan and Clara walked back toward their homes. They moved slowly, enjoying the quiet comfort of each other's company. Neither of them felt the need to speak constantly. Sometimes a shared smile or a gentle glance said more than words ever could. When they reached the edge of the village, they paused. Ethan looked at Clara, and she looked back at him. There was a moment of silence, filled with unspoken understanding. "I'm glad we met yesterday," Ethan said finally. and I'm glad we spent today together. Clara smiled. Me too. It's been special. Ethan nodded. I hope we can spend more time like this. Not because of any challenge or tradition, but just because we enjoy each other's company. Clara's eyes sparkled. I'd like that very much. They said their goodbyes for the day, but neither of them felt the distance as they walked to their separate homes. Something important had begun. Something genuine and lasting. It was a connection born not from games or expectations, but from the choices of the heart. That evening, as Ethan sat on the porch of his family home, he thought about the events of the past 2 days. The Apple Challenge had brought him close to Clara, but it had also taught him a valuable lesson. True courage was not about winning a competition or impressing others. It was about honesty, kindness, and taking care of those around you. Clara, too, reflected on the day as she prepared for bed. She smiled at the memory of their laughter, the gentle moments of conversation, and the quiet understanding they had shared. She realized that she valued Ethan not for his skills or his bravery in the challenge, but for his heart, his thoughtfulness, and his sincerity. Days passed, and their friendship grew. They would meet in the morning to walk through the village, help with chores, or simply sit by the stream and talk. Each meeting deepened their understanding of one another, and the trust between them grew stronger. They shared small joys, supported each other through challenges, and discovered that genuine connection was built on consistency, care, and respect. The villagers continued their daily routines, and life went on as it always had. Yet for Ethan and Clara, something had changed forever. A simple challenge meant for fun had led to the discovery of something much greater, a bond formed not by games or prizes, but by the choices of two hearts willing to care, listen, and understand. Even as they grew older, they would remember the day of the Apple Challenge and the quiet walks through the village as the beginning of a story that was theirs alone. A story of courage, not in skill alone, but in the courage to be kind, honest, and present for someone who mattered. And in that courage, they found something that no game, no tradition, and no crowd could ever give them. Connection that would last a lifetime. The Apple Challenge remained a story the villagers would tell for years. A tale of bravery and skill. But for Ethan and Clara, it was only the start. The real story was the one they wrote together, day by day, heart by heart, discovering that the greatest victories were not measured by arrows or applause, but by love, friendship, and the courage to truly care.